Recently, identity verification provider Veridas, which is based in Spain, announced a merger with Amsterdam-based KYC firm Fourthline. The merger is indicative of a trend in the industry, which is seeing companies consolidate services to provide broader coverage and meet customer demand for unified solutions. In recent weeks, Precise Biometrics completed a merger with Fingerprint Cards, and Okta acquired Oasis Security. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. As identity gets more interconnected with infrastructure, isolated biometric software products are less likely to sell than comprehensive security packages that offer a suite of tools. I'm Joel McConvey. On today's episode of the Biometric Update podcast, I speak with Eduardo Azanza, CEO of Veridas, about how the Fourthline merger reflects a shift in the industry towards consolidated identity services. Welcome to today's guest, Eduardo Azanza, CEO of Veridas.
No, thank you very much for having me. Thanks a lot.
Maybe you can start by telling me where Veridas was at before the merger with Fourthline and what motivated this move for the company.
Yeah, we started to work in the identity space 11 years ago. Back then when we started as a joint venture with BBVA, one of the largest banks, I would say, in Europe and in the world. And 11 years ago, identity was, I would say, nice to have in order to acquire customers, to make new business. And this has been a tremendous history because we've been able to deploy our technologies to make sure who's at the other side. That is the main question that we have. The backbone of the digital economy is identity. If we don't have identity sorted out, we don't have digital economy. So that was the idea hovering around 11 years ago. 11 years later, this is clearly a mandate. If we don't know for sure who's at the other side of the screen, who's at the other side of the telephone line, we don't have a real digital transformation. So trust in identity is the backbone of the digital business. So with that mission of making sure the real identity of a person, so our mission is very simple, is to tell apart between a real and a fake identity. And this is how we were born. Now is more important than ever, given, the AI fraud pandemic, as we call it, that we are seeing to have more resources, more capabilities, more power in order to fight against this war in which, let's say, the largest corporations in the world are putting free arms in the hands of the fraudsters. Okay? And this is rightly the situation. So we have a tremendous business opportunity on bringing the internet, the identity layer that it wasn't born with. That is the tremendous business opportunity. And on the other hand, we have this tremendous threat from compromising the systems and being more and more difficult to tell apart between a fake and a real identity. So before the merger, we were doing great. We had, since the very beginning, we thought that owning the technology was the key of the success of the company. So we started building our own ID document verification technologies, face biometrics, repeatedly top ranked by the NIST in the USA since 2018 in the highest positions, face, voice, of course, NFC verification. So everything that you need in an identity stack to make sure that a real identity is real identities, from document verification to face biometrics, voice biometrics. And I would say that lately, I would say the last 3-4 years, we have not only worked on this, let's say, real identity side of making sure that you are who you claim you are, doing our ADB technologies and deploying those, but also making sure that the channel and the device is non-compromised. So let's say that we have on the one hand a real verified identity, thanks to our proprietary technologies of face, liveness, injection attack detection, all that. And now we combine that, making sure that your device and the channel is not compromised. So we have a big chunk of set of technologies, also AI-powered, so that we can make sure that the channel and device is not compromised. So we combine this real identity with this channel and device integrity. What we end having is what I call a trusted, real digital identity. Okay? And let's say so far, this trust, real digital identity, we have handed over to our business partners, to our banks, chess, gaming, crypto, etc. And now it opens up a new window with the self-sovereign identity and the wallet capability. So let's say this trusted real digital identity, we can hand it over to our customers, but also in the near future, which is now, we can deliver that identity to the end user so he can choose, he can reuse it, he can choose whom he shares his attributes, when, where, etc. Right? So this is our vision, no? A complete vision on identity, from identity origination, authentication, making sure that the channel and device is integral, and then deliver that identity to our business partners, or ultimately as a verifiable credential, which we believe is going to be the future of identity management. So this is what we're standing, operating mainly Southern Europe, Latin America, and a little bit in the USA. Okay, mainly large banks, let's say traditional banks, very large telecommunication companies, gaming, government, mobility. This is where we were operating, no?
Mm-hmm.
And doing it great in terms of revenue growth. We've been growing consistently in the last 3 years with profitable numbers, also in a very efficient capital way of using our resources.
Mm-hmm.
And this is but at the same time, we were reflecting, okay, we are winning battles, but there's a war out there.
Right.
So in order to win the war, you need a larger army and a better equipped army. And there it comes Fourthline, more or less with the same idea, right?
You mentioned wallets, and I wonder to what extent is the movement in Europe, with the UDI wallet scheme coming into play and the adoption of wallets elsewhere, how much of this is a driver of this sort of move towards, certifiable credentials and identity for the end user?
Mm-hmm. Well, the wallet, as you know, in December, the 24th of December, in Christmas Eve 2027, Europe will put in place this digital identity for every European. It's going to be voluntary, mm-hmm. but every European, we will have the right to use our identity with this verifiable credential. And of course, this will take time and it will ramp up. As I like to say, this is a very important project for Europe in terms of digital economy in Europe. But I truly believe that this way of handling identity, in which the user has control over the data, can revoke, and also the user of the credentials, I believe is going to be the future, not only in Europe, but I would say everywhere. No, so on that end, of course, we've built a full ecosystem, which is now starting to be rolling out in probably during the next year, because let's say all the banks, all the telcos, even Facebook, Google, and so on, are obliged to accept this type of identification in Europe as of the Christmas Eve 2027. Okay, so this opens up also an opportunity in terms of business, but I also believe that this way of handling identity is going to be in everywhere else. We are currently running some projects in Latin America in which we want to deploy the full ecosystem, not only the credential verification, but also the wallet itself, the credential issuance services. So that is a way, and we will, I hope soon, maybe we can devote just a podcast to talk about this and the projects that we have in mind and we are going to deliver in the coming months. I would say the largest wallet in the world is going to be deployed in Mexico with Veridas technology. So that was part of the future strategy that we are setting in the new venture too. Also in terms of regulatory changes, there's a new regulation in Europe for anti-money laundering, which is put in place in July 2027, which also opens up also a an opportunity window, no, to expand our common customer base, which I would say also it is very complementary. When we are talking about this operation, I always speak about the three-axis complementarity between us and Fourthline. One is the geography footprint, in which, as I've mentioned, we are in the southern Europe, Latin America, a little bit in the USA. They are very strong in Central and Northern Europe. Okay. Second complementarity is the type of industry or customer that we've been working historically. While we've been working with, let's say, traditional banks, telcos, mobility, gaming, government, etc., they've been super successful on neos, neobanks, neo traders, neo brokers. So that also is a very, very interesting complementarity aspect. And due to this complementarity in terms of type of customer, makes also us very complementary in terms of product portfolio. Right? So while some people might say, okay, they do both the same, that is not the case. As long as they were delivering their systems for neos, new banks, new cryptos, etc., they've deployed a full end-to-end platform to do the KYC. As long as we were working with more traditional banks, telcos, etc., we've been more vertical on producing biometric engines, anti-fraud capabilities, also the wallet capability that complements nicely with their KYC, PEP and sanction, anti-money laundering, signature services, bank account verification. So let's say that the overlap in terms of technologies is minimal. Mm-hmm. So we firmly believe that the offering that Veridas and Fourthline is going to bring to the market could be, if not the most, one of the most complete and proven portfolio in the industry. We've seen other acquisitions, other M&A in the industry, which are far different from what we are doing here in terms of complementarity. So we feel really, really positive, what we are building or what we are going to build, because the actual closing, as we've mentioned, will take place once the customary approval process takes place, which will happen very soon.
Working in different regions, you mentioned the difference between Northern Europe, Southern Europe, certainly Latin America. Obviously, these all bring different regulatory regimes and views to the table. Can you speak a bit about the challenge of navigating or being able to kind of operate in all these different regulatory contexts?
Yeah, regulation has been a big focus for us. We at Veridas are very used to working a global footprint regulation. So we've been not only, let's say, look to the regulation, but also talking to the regulators everywhere where we operate, so that we can discuss with the regulator what the technology can do, what are the requirements, so that the regulator can properly regulate, not over or under regulate, given the technology. So we've been navigating that, for instance, with banking in Mexico or in Brazil, or gaming industry in Argentina, or some other regulations. There are few, but there are regulations in the USA too. Of course, in terms of data protection. So regulation for us has been always a key. And from the Fourthline perspective, they are in fact a regulated entity. So they are a regulated entity. They have a branch which is regulated according to the Dutch central bank. So that is also something that they provide to some customers, this reliance service. So some customers from them rely on them to have this regulatory aspect. So they are also very strong on compliance and regulation affairs. And in our industry, you know perfectly that regulation also means brings business, and can bring business into the table. But we like to say to our customers that regulation shouldn't be allowed. Mm-hmm. We can make business or better business out of the regulation. Talking about wallet is going to be a regulation, but it opens up a full set of new catalog of services in terms of loyalty programs or payment systems. So That is what we are trying to do, not having the regulation as a burden, but also as a means to improve and to do more digital business, because you have more trust in the identity who's behind.
As this becomes more complex, the wallet schemes come out, there's more options in terms of digital credentials. There does seem to be this movement towards unified platforms, right? People want to be able to access the full scope of options for the customer lifecycle within one platform. What do you think is driving that? Is that customer demand? Is it just the shape of the industry as it's developing? Why are people coming together the way they are?
Well, the identity industry is very fragmented, as you know. So in the bucket of identity, there are many things. Some may understand one thing, some may understand the other. But whenever you are dealing with a large corporation, sometimes they want somebody that can cover the full spectrum. So there is less hassle on contracting, a more complete service, easier contracting, easier service. And that is a trend not only in identity, in every single industry. At the end of the day, these large corporations, they want to say, okay, I want a hassle-free service. So if you give me everything and you have a good quality, good price, good service, that's fine. And due to the complex nature of identity, as you were mentioning, in terms of regulation, compliance, data protection, it's even stronger, the mandate. And also due to the difficult nature of making sure that an identity is fake or not, because it's a very complex task. When we are running an IDB, there are 45 AI engines behind, in our case. When you are running and just, okay, your ID, your driving license, your liveness, biometrics, and so on, and you do this process that many of you know. In our case, there are over 40 AI engines running behind on that. So it's a super complex task. So that's why I think most of the customers says, okay, I want somebody that could be, as we like to say, my chief identity officer, somebody that not only help me out with customer acquisition, but also doing some other use cases. And we have a lot of successful or success stories there. BBVA, of course, is one of them. We started with just one single case in one country. Today, we have 68 different use cases in 12 countries. And so the idea is that you can orchestrate with the very same components, very complex and different journeys and different regulations. And that is one of the keys of our success, this modularity, this capability to build modularly and orchestrate the very same components into different journeys easily.
Mm-hmm. Has that become more of a challenge in terms of marketing the product? Like, are you finding yourself now positioning Veridas as an orchestration platform? Is this more important than it used to be? Is it harder to sell the product?
The orchestration work became very popular 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
Everybody was talking about orchestration, and we said, well, orchestration is the basic layer. I mean, you have services, you have to orchestrate them, but it becomes mainstream word or buzzword. Mm-hmm. I would say that it's much more than that. Orchestration is a feature. Mm-hmm. Orchestration is a feature that I would say most of the vendors have out there. The key is telling apart between a real and a fake identity. And in order to do so, you need to own the technology, because you can orchestrate many different things, but if you don't own the tech, as long as the challenges evolve on a monthly basis, you cannot keep up the pace. So you have some companies out there orchestrating 25 different vendors, and at the end of the day, they orchestrate nothing because everything is evolving and they cannot keep the pace. Mm-hmm. So orchestration for us is a feature. It's something that is taken for granted. Of course, you will have an orchestration engine to deploy different use cases, different journeys. Key is that you own the core technology so that you can keep up the pace of a new document, of a new feature, of a new... we are pushing new releases every 15 days in terms of improvements. And so for us, for instance, conversion is key. User experience is key. Omnichannelity, we've worked a lot, let's say, in web scenarios. So you can run an IDV within WhatsApp natively, for instance. And you have to be able to match the user experience and security into a WhatsApp session than what you get into a native app. And for us, this is the key, keeping user experience, security, and efficiency in this triangle of biometrics, rather than some features.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is the biggest challenge or threat right now? All these components fall under this sort of umbrella of identity, deepfake detection, injection attacks. What is the biggest concern on the horizon or sort of on the table right now for the identity industry from the fraud perspective?
Yeah, I think as I've mentioned before, the advent of Gen AI is, let's say, free tools to do good things and bad things also is clearly one of the main threats that we are seeing as an industry. But this doesn't mean that we are, okay, we cannot do anything. That is not the case, of course. We are building AI systems also to fight against AI systems that threaten us. So I would say it's not a threat. I would say it's the opportunity to tell apart between companies that will be able to keep this race and companies that won't be able to keep this because they don't own the tech and they don't understand it properly, right? So I think one of the challenges is keeping the fraud at bay while being able to keep up also the regulation pace at the same time and being able to deliver new use cases in an efficient manner. But sometimes you end up into a very complex, lengthy processes to get the businesses up there. So something that we are working a lot is, being able to deliver identity as a service. If you are a small company or you are a small rent-a-car company, you don't need to build a castle. You just need a trusted identity. So that is a direction that we are also working with, delivering this trusted, real digital identity in no time, very easily. And in order to do so, you need web solutions which are strong enough in terms of fraud, in terms of experience. Omnichannelity, it has to work in any device, in any browser. So when you look at the full picture, there are a lot of bells and whistles that you have to take care of in order to provide this seamless experience in an omnichannel way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I usually like to finish with a question about the future, but I also like to finish with a question about, something a little different that's not necessarily specifically about biometrics. And I noticed in researching your bio that you worked for a renewable energy company for a long time. And, you're in Spain, hopefully safe. But, there's obviously a problem out there with climate and managing heat waves and whatnot. And this is sort of an abstract question, but do you ever think about whether or not there's a role for identity in meeting this particular challenge? Is there a way we can leverage these tools to sort of focus our efforts in that direction?
That's a good question. Yeah, I was very lucky. I worked 13 years for the renewable industry and then another 14 for the AI and identity, which doesn't make any sense for a mechanical engineer, but life is this great, right? No, of course, which role can play identity. Identity plays a key role. I return to my first phrase, I would say. Identity is the backbone of the digital economy. Digital economy can bring a lot in terms of climate because in the end, what you have to do remotely, you don't have to go in face to face, right? So on that end, any digital interaction, if you keep cost at bay, and we have to see what happens with the Gen AI and all the post, derive on the data centers and so on. But I think this will change also in the future because I think the edge computing will bring a lot of savings there. But that is and I will discuss about it. So let's say, as definition, the digital economy should be lighter in terms of carbon emissions and climate than the, let's say, face to face. So if we are not able to deliver a trusted identity, we don't have digital economy. So we have to get back to the physical economy. What else can we do? Of course, what we are doing every single time is improving our engines so that when I'm mentioning a lot of AI engines, those are super optimized to be very small in computing. There is also something that we are working, which is bringing some of the engines to the edge. So why do you need to go to the cloud, go to the data center to do a simple query to an LLM, while you can run it in more than 6 billion devices operating out there? Mm-hmm. So I think this is going to be a trend for LLMs, and this is going to be a trend in identity too. So we are pushing some of the engines into the edge because of the efficiency, because of the user experience, and it has also this advantage, of having less, let's say, CO2 or less consumption.
No, that's very interesting. Yeah, and definitely seems like the logical way that things might move. Eventually you're going to run out of real estate for these massive data centers. So, well, thank you for your reflection on that question, and thank you for your insights into the merger between Veridas and Fourthline and the identity industry generally. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I thank you again for joining us today.
Well, thanks to you for your time, and happy to be available to have more general discussion about any question that you may have.
Thanks again to Eduardo Azanza for joining me today, and thanks to you for listening. You can learn more about Veridas at veridas.com. And for all the latest news on biometrics and digital identity, be sure to visit www.biometricupdate.com.